Hello, everyone. I hope you are well and enjoying the Phillies game. I'd like to provide you with an overview of our face to face class, our sixth class together. And in summary, we will explore how specialists within a school setting, such as reading specialists, school psychologists, or other teachers, use a measure known as an informal reading inventory, otherwise known as IRIs. These are often used to diagnose literacy, strengths, and needs, similar to a running record, but we're using this to dig a little deeper and identify specific areas. This week, we will examine the administration and interpretation of informal reading inventories. So hang on to your seats. Our guidepost for this evening will be welcome and a quick rate of your experiences so far with administering your running record. Content will be involving and include individual reading inventories. Your connect and collaborate will be to unite with another classmate or two and share your initial findings from your running record with your respective student and include how this informs your instruction. We will also note our next steps in your running record assessment and instruction practice. Remember that we are using these as an assessment tool to inform our next steps and our plans for instruction. Thank you for adhering to our norms and expectations for our classes, being present, being respectful, being patient and positive, and using respectful and supportive language. Our vocabulary on our word wall, if you will include individual reading inventory, zone of proximal development, literal, inferential, and miscue analysis. As I have shared over the course, I do like to provide the continuum of reading levels for your reference. So this leads us into an individual reading inventory. I know many of you have different background experiences in administering an IRI, and maybe some of you, this is your first time being exposed to what it actually is. Being an educator for a long time, sometimes here and there, it's wonderful to gain affirmation of what you're doing is seen as a best practice. So, in terms of an informal reading inventory, it is a type of test that literacy teachers use to determine a student's reading level, as well as strengths and needs in word recognition and comprehension. As we saw last week, we know that these are critical components of the reading rope in the science of reading. Informal reading inventory is indeed a generic term. There are many commercially published informal inventories, some such as qualitative reading inventories I showed the other evening, and Burns and Rowe informal reading inventory. I do note that these are commercially made and generic, and teachers conduct an informal reading inventory by asking a student to read lists of words in isolation, as well as narrative and expository paragraphs or stories or passages. During the administration, teachers look for clues in the way the student decodes and responds to questions about each paragraph. So again, somewhat similar to to a running record. So the overall why and purpose of using an individual reading inventory is for various reasons. We want to match students with appropriate reading materials. So looking at and honoring the zone of proximal development by Vygotsky, we know that there is a zone in which a student can learn. In other words, we're not going to give someone just beginning to lift weights or bench press. We're not going to give them 600 pounds to bench press. We're not going to give them also nothing to do or a very lightweight. We want to give them a well-fitting weight in order to grow their muscle, and in this case, their muscle memory, to become successful. So in balanced literacy, we often facilitate guided reading groups. We design instruction to address students' noted strengths and needs, and then document reading progress over time. An IRI provides a window into how a student processes reading, and it really provides like more of a personalized approach through my perspective while students become readers. So, administering an informal reading inventory, as we review this video, I'd like you to think about the grade levels addressed in each informal reading inventory, the quality of questions that accompany each narrative and expository text, and the number of passages provided for each grade level. I will post this video onto Canvas for those who are tuning in virtually due to sometimes the audio difficulties. One component of an IRI is how a reader responds to both literal and inferential questioning. So literal questions are those who, what, where, when of the text. So sometimes those surface level questions. The answers can be found in the text and the pictures. It's basically factual, and there is no room for interpretation or inferencing. Being able to answer literal questions is indeed an essential aspect for understanding text. Inferential questions often do not have direct answers within the text, but it's like reading between the lines. It may be inferred from clues within the text. Below, we have some examples here. So, like, why? Why do you think? What is the problem? What can you conclude about? Predict what would happen if. What lesson does the text teach us? How does the author feel about? And a menu of methods of questioning can go on and on. It's really to challenge your readers and have them think more analytically about their reading. As we mentioned too, that through an IRI and a reading inventory and a running record, if you will, there is a review of words correct per minute. So the algorithm, if you will, is as followed. So when students read the entire passage, the fluency level can be calculated following these steps. So this would be accounted for on a youngster's instructional level. So the total number of words read minus the errors or miscues, okay, that will give you the words read correctly. And then you would find the total words read correctly and multiply that by 60. And that's because of the number of seconds in a minute. Then you're going to divide that total by the number of seconds that it took to read the passage. And that would give you a words correct per minute number, just to quantify and help you with progress monitoring. I'd like to give you some snapshots. Some oftentimes these are questions that what is an ideal oral reading rate at an instructional level? So I wanted to give you a breakdown of like a pre-primer, primer, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth grade, and so on. Also, Fontes and Pinnell, a leader in literacy, also presents the grade level correlation to oral reading rate. So if you're a special education teacher, this could often be used for progress monitoring purposes if there is an identified need in fluency. Oftentimes as well, especially in a QRI or IRI, sometimes we want to know, okay, if they're reading and they have a passage, and sometimes each passage will be accompanied by a calculation. So if your reader had up to 7 miscues in the passage, that would be considered an independent, 8 to 29 instructional, and 30 and so on would be frustration. So I just wanted to capture one example of what could be included in an IRI reading passage as a breakdown. And this is also wonderful for interpretation. So for this evening, we will connect and collaborate with some time to review your rubric for your lesson plan. And in addition to that, I'd like you to share findings relating to your running record. We all learn best from each other. So you can use this time as either or a supportive time or just a sharing time, and like in a way celebration of where you are right now. And then your steps for lesson planning. I want to remind you that your lesson plan template is included on Canvas, and I know you are familiar with this at this juncture. I should say familiar with the specific template. So in honor of our class time, metacognitively, and to help us walk through the Freyer model, I again would like you to select a vocabulary word from our word wall. And include and design your Freyer model around that word. If for our face-to-face, I will have printouts. I decided to just print out some organizers for you. Okay. Bringing us back to the science of reading and the strands that coalesce in order for our readers to become highly skilled. We touched on word recognition over the course of these weeks, and language comprehension. So they all are tied together and woven into more of a fluent and automatic, natural, skilled reader. I'd like you to reflect upon what your next steps are for our closure. All right, and thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you soon. Be well.